Hello, hello. Let me know if the music's too loud. This music's like crazy loud. Hello, Stefan. Hello, Greta. Hello, everyone. How was your June? Turn on my light. Okay, we'll get started. I don't think we're gonna be able to wait for Jesse. Jesse seems like he wants a introvert's break, so we'll start with Greta's piece first. I promise I will also finish up that tutorial. I'm like editing it right now, but I haven't added the fancy effects just yet, so oopsie. Okay, so for Greta's, let's see what we're working with. What is my Photoshop doing? Hello. Oh, yeah, there we go. I'm pretty sure this was a while back because we have definitely reviewed some of these topics already, and your line work is a lot better now. But let's talk about some things that pop out to me right away is the expression. So, let me see if I can make this image in a different spot. I'm gonna make her expression bigger so we can focus, so ignore that hole. But some things about her expression that's not reading on yours is just the lack of the eyebrow wrinkles. Oh, what the heck? Cover that up. Don't mind me just being OCD. No worries. If you haven't drawn, always, go back to just basics, doodle whatever you want. That way you feel motivated to go back to drawing. But don't feel guilty if you haven't done anything. No one's expecting you to be like Misu here, creating 1500 layers just for a sketch. Okay, so I'm going to add some wrinkles here. So some wrinkles that you're going to want to pay attention to this expression is the way that her eyebrows kind of pinch in her nose right here. So I'm going to try to use that same color that you have. Let me close some tabs. I think some of these things are eating up my CPU. Okay. So we're going to add this one right here just to create that tension between the nose and under eye right here. You can even exaggerate the under eye a little bit more. That way it'll read like she's actually squinting her eyes. And then her mouth needs to be a lot more wide, more of an O shape. So we are trying, I know the stylization is to try to capture the lip, but because we don't have any of like the lips right here, what we need to do is we just need to make the part of the mouth bigger. And if you're never sure about like how wide that needs to be, is you're going to use, you can trace over on top of it and you can just see the general shape of it. So see how we don't have that weird dip back inwards, it's more wide. And I would suggest you don't do such a dark color for the gums. For stylization especially, I would even, you know, not color in the gums. It closes off the whole shape of it. So here's her teeth. And if you're doing that whole toji fang kind of thing, so we're going to create this weird kind of hexagonal shape and less emphasis on that lip right here because that line isn't very long. I know, we love those fangs, don't we? And I would just omit the rest of those gums because if you draw the rest of them, it looks very weird, almost like monkey-like, very like angry primate. So only emphasize this part of the gum. And to make that purse look, oh my gosh, Zoop Zoop, I don't even know what the heck's going on. Who's following me? Thank you for following me, I guess. I don't know. Ah, Photoshop! Fuck! Okay. We want to capture this overlap of the lip because this is what it makes up that expression. So we'll extend this part of the lip just a little bit. And this pursing part right here is part of that expression. And already you see how she's starting to look like she's doing that pursing expression. We'll fix up this part right here because we need this part of that nose to have that wrinkle. So that's where your nose and your cheek is kind of crinkling upwards to create that really harsh shadow. Same for here, you can do another kind of shadow right here, a thick line, to kind of simulate this wrinkle right there. And when she is squinting her eyes, obviously we don't want to have too much of that eye be so big. Okay, and obviously we gotta move this guy up. It's not lined up quite there. Oh, what? There you go, a little bit closer. And this eye right here is almost like she's winking, so honestly you won't even really see a lot of the eyeball in there. See that? It's like barely see any whites in there. And I'll bring down her lips a little bit more so she looks like she's kind of pursing her lips open. And I thicken that line underneath to kind of create that shadow, very subtle shadow underneath. Now her expression is a little bit better. Just small things that we'll fix is we want to make sure her neck is not too thick, especially since we are stylizing a lot of the features here. And while her neck is the same size of her jaw, I think the angle of it was just too angled, so it looked very, very thick. I'll even raise the eyebrow higher just so we get that more brow cocked look. Let's clean up those lines in there. Clean up, clean up, clean up. And one other thing, to make her neck look smaller is we'll make her shoulders just a little bit broader. That way she doesn't look like her head is humongo. See how just a little bit bigger makes her whole head shrink in size just a little bit. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, and then I'll use filter liquify to just mess around with some of those sharpness of the shoulders. So it's just a little sharp. If it creates a right angle, it's too sharp for the shoulder. It kind of makes her look very bony. And we want to make sure we get that angle, that big defining angle, before any of these other features that you draw in there. Okay, see how getting rid of that darkness of the gums makes her look a little bit younger and look less scary. If you want to make her look like really scary, then obviously you would just add those gums back in there. So let me go ahead and merge that down and clean up this line right here. Okay, so something like that for her expression would be good enough. Let's see, for sexy schmexy man muscles, I think these lines are good indicators for how to build up the muscles. Let me just make sure your feet placements are good. I think this feet needs to be a little bit more closer to this way though. So one way you're gonna look at it, you're gonna draw this line from each big toe. You can either draw this line or you can use like your pencil and kind of line it up so that when you're drawing yours, it should line up. So see how that front toe is a little bit too far or too far back. Load Photoshop. Let me see if I can close some tabs. Close, close. Okay, so when you're sketching, you're just gonna try to match that same line. And we're just gonna treat this as one singular curve in order to sketch it. So this whole curve of the leg should continue on into the feet. And you're going to want to also mark off where the major folds are. Okay, Greta. This back leg right here should line up with the foot because this is what's making the pants hang off of the foot. Then you have big wrinkle here, and this is where that calf muscle bend is bending towards that knee. So if your knee is bending right about here, we should have a fold over here. Okay, and then you can exaggerate that Dorito shape by expanding the other side. And you're gonna see it creates a nice triangle shape, nice diagonal. When you had yours there, it's a very straight line. We want a more diagonal silhouette. And then tuck that arm back in order to create that very streamlined silhouette. Okay, and then let's see doggo. So cute. I'm also going to make it bigger so we can see how to capture the dog's expression and make it look cute and funny at the same time. Another follower? Woohoo! Not that it matters, I'm gonna be honest, I don't stream enough. Okay, for the expression of the dog, we're missing this shadow area right here in order for the dog's mouth to look like it's open. So we're gonna add back that shadow real quick, and you can kind of do these harsh shadow shapes if you're not looking to do any like soft shading. Just pay attention to the overall shape of the shadow. So for in this case, it's this kind of weird heart shape, V shape kind of thing. And it connects to the bottom of the mouth. And you want to make sure that the dog's eyes are round in order for it to look kind of kooky. And if you ever feel like your sketches don't look good, I would highly recommend you color in the eyes before you say anything else, because that will help make the sketch look a lot better just from that small change. For noses, we have a couple of different shapes for dog noses. So dog noses either come in these kind of weird mushroom shapes, or they come in very kind of triangular, kind of pentagonal shape. And then you also have those dogs where they have their nose very round, beady nose, right? In this case, little Chihuahua right here has more of that mushroom shape, so we want to recapture that in our image. Yikes. And for dog noses, dog snouts, they're always the nose is at the top of that whole mouth anatomy. So when you are drawing the mouth, make sure it connects to the top of that nose for it to make sense. Dog ears, just like cat ears, they're gonna have a fold in this triangular space, and in this case, Chihuahuas have very thin skin, so you don't see as much of that fold, but there is a fold still. And let's draw in that little nice wrinkle, so we can divide the top half of the body where the neck is and the bottom half. Make him that snatched waist. That snatched ass waist. Especially when they're stretched out, they got that S shape. And let's take a look at what is overlapping. So when you're looking at this image, you're going to decide if you're going to have the cushion on top or the dog on top. And in this case, maybe to make it feel like the Chihuahua sitting inside the cushion, you're going to have the cushion on top overlapping. So right here, I might choose to have this fold just a little bit higher over on top of the Chihuahua, even though that might not necessarily be true. And just to make things a little fun, if you want to make the tail look like it's wagging, do it more sketchy, like don't make it so perfect. So it kind of looks like the tail is moving a little bit. As for the feet, to make really cute feet, we have a couple of options. So there is the classic very stubby feet, like this. You can opt for a more defined shape, but all of these have in common is that they're very round, very compacted. So to make this look cute, I'm going to erase the toes first, erase that foot first, and we're going to simplify the general shape of that leg so it looks kind of cuter. And this is going to require just a teensy little bit of a knowledge of dog anatomy / animal anatomy. So let me shrink down my brush just a little bit. And we're gonna just treat this whole section as one thing, and your only kind of bump that you'll have is where the elbow thing is. Everything else you can treat as relatively straight. And especially in cases where the dog's anatomy is kind of being squished against the pillow, you're not really going to see any of like the elbows or the bony joints. So you can kind of cheat a little bit and just simplify it as one single curve. And as we go towards the paw, we're going to get smaller. Now we're going to create this nub first. And we're going to divide. Same for here, create the little nub. And we're gonna make the feet a little bit chubbier than they actually are. And that's just because the whole cutesy animals, if you remember that tutorial, I said that lots of cutesy things have rounder, chubbier features. If you do this exact paw right here, it's gonna look a little bit more scary. Same if you add any claws. If you add really long claws, like how you see here, it's going to look scarier versus if you just add really short claws that are a little bit rounded, it might look a little bit cuter. And I'm going to erase that line that you see over here, because if you add that line, it's going to really separate it too cartoon-like. We want to have the illusion that the dog's head is somewhat part of the body still. Okay, so it's maybe something like that. You can also add just some claws over here. You can add the dew claw over here if you want. And that's how I would simplify, make it look really cute and funny for the dog. Okay, so let's take a look at before and after. So before, after, just some slight changes, not too crazy big. All right, my laptop. Ugh. Hold a sec, give me a sec, y'all. I'll charge it before it shuts down on me, and then you guys don't see me anymore. Let's see, is it charging? Not charging just yet. Okay, it's charging now. Oof. Oh, I know what happened. In my fervor, I reset essentials. I closed out the windows. Okay, shut up. Alright, so that's for Greta. We'll go ahead and move on to Misu with our big old anime babas. And yes, we know you're not a pervert, Misu. Everyone has their moments where they just want to embrace the beauty of big anime titties. I won't lie, I'm also guilty. It's just fun to draw. Okay, so some tips. Let's see. Rough. So that's color, that's background. I'm gonna make this darker so I can see what's going on. I think your anatomy is getting a lot better, Misu, not gonna lie. Okay, so when it comes to doing line art, it just comes down to having a really good sketch base, because you're gonna use your sketch to kind of figure out all the anatomy issues, the motion of the line, figure out how you want to place everything. Once that's really like just in there, it can be as messy as you want. We can do 2 or 3 line arts just to clean it up. So for me personally, because I don't I kind of like the messy look of a line art. I don't clean up my line art that much, but for the case of say like really clean illustrations, you definitely do need a little bit more of that preciseness. So what do? We're gonna first get rid of that color. We're gonna make this super light. And I would suggest you use a brush that has some sort of stabilizer. So where's my tools? I gotta find it, hold a sec. No. Brush presets. Okay, so if you're able to get in Photoshop, mess around with like the smoothing section of it, it'll help make your line work a little bit more stable. I know in Clip Studio they have like a tool to make it so whatever line you draw, they'll automatically like refine it, so that makes the line work process a little bit faster. But if you're doing manually, obviously, only tip I have is to make sure that you're using your whole arm to draw and not just your wrist. In order to get those very stable lines, I'm using, say, let's use this size right here. No, I go smaller. Seems like you like the smaller lines. If you don't have line weight, it's not the end of the world, but it does mean that you'll have to go over it later to add the line weight back. So traditionally with manga artists, they'll add the line weight while they're drawing. So they'll do a slightly bigger brush and they'll put on pressure sensitivity. That way they create that skinny to fat line. Now because you don't have that, we'll just keep with our skinny lines. And I don't want you to sit there and think you have to get the perfect line. Most of the time when I'm doing my line art, it's not going to be perfect, I would rather you just try to get that first stroke and just go quickly and break it into chunks that are sizable for you. So, and then erase away anything that got outside of the line and just fix it up. So if it's not right the first time, don't stress it. You have the Control Z button for a reason. Using your whole arm, it doesn't have to line up exactly with your sketch. You can also goof around, make it a little bit off a little bit, so long as it is pretty close to what you want. So that's pretty close to what I want. If there's some slight goof ups, you can always erase and just fix manually. Smaller sections, we're gonna go quickly. That way you get that very wispy look. I would say just choose one color first to do all the line work, and then after you're done, lock the layer. And if you decide you want to choose a color, specific color that makes for later for coloring purpose easier for you, you can go ahead and do that. For rendering, I think it just depends on your style preference, right? So if you want more of that very classic shoujo look, the manga look, they tend to use black and they just do a very thin black line. Oh, that's too thin, you can barely see it. So they do a very thin line like this. And then they just use colors to kind of, you know, go over everything because you can barely see the line anyway. But for artists where the line art is a major component of their work, so say like, I don't know, like Loish, or who else is good for line work? What's her name? I'm blanking right now, but there are like a lot of artists who make line art like a big part of their personality, right? Like this part is a major component of how they color. Then obviously they're going to want to think consciously about the color that their line art is going to be. Because they don't necessarily want to have, say this is a fairy. It's a really shitty fairy, but it's a fairy. There's a difference between having it all in black. I'm subconsciously making it Wanda from The Fairly Odd Parents. I don't even remember her hair, but whatever. Okay, so there's a difference if I said I wanted to color, just do some general colors here. Okay, so say there's a difference between this look right here and if I had this line art a different color. So if I chose to do more of a purplish line art, this is going to give a different feel. See that? So it depends on how you want your illustration to look, Misu. If you don't want it such a contrasted look, I would recommend you use either like a very light brown, like use a brownish color like this, or you can use more of that bluish purplish color depending on your color scheme. Let me see what colors you chose for this. Okay, so it's very blue, so I would suggest we can go for more of that bluish purplish color. And the reason why we don't do just we don't use that brown color is if you use brown, you would only want to use it for the skin. All the other areas is gonna look an ugly color once you add that brown in there. So let's see, hide that, hide that. So let me choose that bluish purplish color. And you're going to want to go quickly, especially for these really short lines. That's how you're going to create that very smooth texture. If you take your time and go slow, it's going to look very messy. So if you go slow like this, you see how the wobbles of my hand kind of show up a lot. Versus if you do this versus this, right? So don't give yourself a moment of doubt and just do it quickly. And if it's wrong, Control Z it. It's not the end of the world. And you can also do shorter sections of that line, so you don't have to do such a big chunk of that hair. We can opt to maybe do just a tiny section of that curve. So say for here, I'm just gonna do this curve right here and swoop, and then we'll continue on that curve the opposite way. And obviously getting these curves to match what you want is going to take some practice to feel out that motion. That's why it takes maybe 2 or 3 times before you finally get it close to what you want. And again, let's start from here. I'm using my whole arm to kind of swish down all the way. Shoot. And we're going to go for all the short curves that are easy to do. And you'll do this for all of your curves and all of your lines, and that way you'll go faster. Yeah, it's going to take a couple times, and I recommend you just go quick. So use your whole arm starting from here, sweep down, rather than just using your wrist, because this is a very small section you'll be able to capture. This whole motion where you're using your shoulder and your elbow, you'll be able to capture a longer line. But if you want, you can try putting it into Clip Studio. I think that stabilizing kind of tool that they have is helpful, especially if you have really wobbly lines. So I'm breaking this up, so see how I don't draw the whole line, because my hand is just not built like that. There are some manga artists where they've trained for so many years they're able to really quickly just get a really smooth long line. And that again just takes practice. All these ends for the hair, we definitely need the fast motion in order to get that wispiness of the line. It doesn't get easier, Misu, it just gets more complicated as you learn more about hair. You just gotta practice it to the point where you're so familiar with drawing hair that you hate it, but it's not as much of a chore. So I'm just gonna help you sort out this mess right here. You had like so much hair doing weird overlaps, so you want to simplify the overall overlapness of the hair, so almost like a helmet. I'm pretty sure there's been tutorials that tell you like, oh, draw it like a helmet. So this is what they mean. We'll make sure that this piece of hair goes on top of this other hair. And again, I don't copy your line exactly, but it gets the same feel, so that's okay. I'm also going to change the hair like right here, because it doesn't make much sense it would curve in this way, especially since it's so long. For stray hairs like this, to save yourself a little bit of time, you can always take that color of the hair. where's the, let me make this colored. Take this color hair and you'll just draw it directly the size that you want. And then if you want that line art, add it in there, merge it in there, erase that extra thing right there. But if you're stubborn about this, go quickly, big strokes. It's okay if it's not perfectly even, because honestly, most of these flyaway hairs are like not the main point of the hair. You want to make sure that the curves, all these curves are smooth. The straight lines are less obvious when it comes to shakiness, but curves is really, really obvious if it's too shaky. And then zoom out to make it easier for you to see those bigger structures, bigger curves like these ones. That way you can really quickly use smaller movements rather than having to use your whole arm. And just helping you, we're gonna make that curve of the hair overlap like this. So when it comes to rendering, it'll be pretty easy for you to figure out which is on top and which is on bottom. And hair is pretty drapey, especially if it's so long like this. We'll have more of that drapey look rather than straight. So all the line work comes down to confidence. So to get rid of shakiness, you just have to just trust in yourself, trust in the movement, and go for it. If you hesitate, if you think, oh, I want to make sure it's perfect, it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to end up shaky because you're too nervous. You're going to start like wiggling, wobbly, trying to control everything. And funny thing is, for line work, when you don't control it, it actually turns out a lot better than if you do. So zoom out a little bit, it'll help you make the lines a little bit more confident feel. And let's add some variety to the ends of the hair. I don't want it just to all be one single, sharp curve. We want maybe some overlaps happening there. And to finish up, this last piece of hair right here, that weird shenagle, we're gonna want to break up the ends of this hair right here. Okay, so there, we finished up the line art for the hair. Let's hide this real quick. So the lines aren't too shaky, not too bad. If you really want to be super anal about it and you want it super perfect, you're just gonna go back over it and just thicken up some of those shaky lines. When you do that, it'll help hide away some of the shakiness. And make sure you're using a slightly bigger brush, just ever so slightly. And that'll help you hide those. So if you have any ends that look like this and they look really ugly, we're gonna thicken up that line to hide it away. Same for here. See how the line is not very smooth? We're going to hide it away by making it a little bit thicker. And keep in mind you want a brush with weight, pressure sensitivity. That way it will help you create these very thin, crispy, pointy lines. Okay, see how I'm cleaning it up? If you have, if you're confident in trying to do the weight, the pressure sensitivity while you're doing the line art, you're gonna opt for a bigger brush. That way we're gonna go push down wherever you want some variety in your lines. Just like that. Okay. So let's see the rest of this. For Big Boba, let's really quickly do the line art for that one so we can start doing some of the coloring, the general color schemes that we can work with. So I'm gonna go quickly using my bigger line art brush so it can hide my goof ups. And sometimes I do have to compromise with the original line is. It's just because how that line ended up, we might have to make the arm just a little bit thicker. Am I on the wrong layer? I am. Ha! Fuck me, okay. How long I've been on the wrong layer. Okay. Okay, we're gonna zoom out to make the lines a little bit less shaky. And I also want to exaggerate that lean in of the arm, so kind of pushing the arm in more than you have it. Okay, so that's the arm. We'll talk about this fabric fold in a second, Misu. This is... what is this doing? And if you can't get this particular angle, no one said you can't do this. So a lot smoother for me because I'm right-handed. It's easier for me to do those curves instead of trying to do this way. Okay, we're gonna talk about the belly anatomy over here right now while I have you. So let me draw her rib cage. Rib cage sits right about here. It's a very warped looking rib cage, I know. Her spine is over here, her hip sits somewhere right about here. Okay, just pretend that's a hip, okay? I'm not looking to be anatomically correct. So we're gonna try to identify where her midline is, and we're gonna use a different color for that. So right here is her midline according to where her chest divides. So that means we should be making sure that her belly button, that midline right of the chest right here, even the crotch is going to sit right here, okay? The belly, this part, the fatty part right here, should be sitting right about here. Her ribs should be right about here. Okay, since you're slacking on the ribs are so tiny, it's kind of like she can't breathe. So we need to expand her ribs a little bit. That way it'll make more sense, because it doesn't make sense for the belly to just be missing, especially if she's going to be big anime titty bobos. Okay, then her crotch can maybe sit somewhere right about here, show off her undie. And this whole belly line right here is going to connect towards where her crotch sits. So if you're not sure where to put it, follow from the belly. Okay. It's kind of like how cats have that primordial pouch, you know? Okay, and then let's make sure her boobs are, you know, placed in the right way. It's not lopsided. So if this is her ribs, right, this is that diagonal that we have to follow. Should sit somewhere here, should sit somewhere there. So it's not too far off. But one thing we do have to note is that the chest, as we go up higher, it starts tilting more straight. Okay, almost like we're looking at these rings right here. And if you can imagine these types of rings as a way to visualize your body, that means the diagonal for the boobs should not be the same diagonal as the ribs. It should actually be a little bit higher. So we're gonna bring her boobs up just a little bit, either that or we bring these boobs down. So do a compromise, do both. Okay, that's good. And you want to make sure that the rib just sits right underneath where the boobs are, because if they're that big and draggy, I'm gonna be real honest, her ribs are probably getting covered up by these bahangas. And then you're gonna have big juicy overlaps in the back, because a chubby girl with big boobas would obviously have some belly rolls, even if it's not a lot. So let me find that midline. Okay, so zoom out. We'll flip it back over just to make sure that we didn't goof up that hard. See how now it's a little bit more balanced as a body? The beautiful voluptuous shapes. And then I just want to make sure that her shoulder pops out more. Because if I'm doing... Where am I? If I'm doing this movement and I turn this way, you'll still be able to see some of my shoulder no matter how far I'm going, unless, you know, I'm doing this way and I'm entirely covering up. But it seems like you're doing this particular pose, right? Where you're gonna see a little bit of that shoulder. So let's go back. And let's see a little bit more of her shoulders, just a little bit. And in which case, the collarbone should start at the top of those shoulders, and meet in that middle. So the middle should line up with where the boob cleavage line is. Let me fix these ugly ass lines. Okay, fix those lines a little bit better. Okay, let me finish up tracing these right here. Typically the sides of the mouth are going to get a heavier line weight versus the tops of the mouth. Same for eyelashes. We're going to use thicker lines for where the middle part of the eye is versus the edge. And for the eyelashes, if you want, you could be very stylized vibe, so you don't have to make it perfectly colored in. There are plenty of manga styles where they just do this kind of very sketchy look for the eyes. So don't know if that's what you're going for, but that's an option. What happened to my music? Roar, roar, roar. And especially for these types of eyes, I would highly recommend you do a thicker line up top to create that shadow and give you some structure to the eyes. Make sure this circle that you have here is actually in the middle and you're not just giving me fake eyes, okay, Misu? Highlights should be in the same direction too. They look wonk if you have them two different directions. And one thing I noticed, the eyes are not the same wideness. So this one's a little bit more like droopy eyed, more sleepy, and then this one's like wide open. So I'm gonna match it. Okay, that way she looks like she's being seductive or some shit. I know. Okay, let's talk about the clothing. So, oof, I'm gonna put it on a different layer because the fabric folds for how these, you know, tankies look. So here is the sleeve, right? So you can draw this part of the sleeve, relatively easy, nothing too much to it. It's where this part right here, the folds happen, that's where it gets complicated. So I'm gonna imagine that this part right here bent down a little bit, which is why it created that. Misu! Why do you not own any wife beaters at least? My god, what kind of a what kind of a husband are you? I'm just kidding. Okay. You would think in Japan you'd have an opportunity to wear them in the summer, but I guess everyone in Japan wears really nice clothes, so tank top. Slipping off shoulder, so maybe that. I think that's not showing. Not a very good. Tank top, thin straps. Thin straps. I wonder if I'll get banned for this. They're all tight. It's not the season for thin. Okay, so this is kind of similar in the way it flows. Okay. I'm not promoting that you beat your wife. I'm promoting that you wear wife beaters. I don't even know why they're called that in the first place. Like, there's no way that some guy decided that this was appropriate name for it. But anyway, so I'm gonna suppose that this is where one fold might happen, especially if it slips off. The fabric's gonna fold over in order for it to slip off. Then for here, maybe we can keep that same looseness. And it's gonna stretch all the way to here. If you want that tank to be super loose, we'll have it fall over basically at this point, right there. And then you can have that fold over. Other option, if you don't like what that's doing, if you want to have the shoulder strap to be something like this, we're gonna have to mess around with the fabric folds a little bit. So this is how long that strap actually is. This distance right here. Trying to see how this would work. I just think it's too high up for the way you had the straps. And then we would have some folding over here. Okay, maybe the strap might fall over that way more. Okay, and then I'm not sure how you want this nightgown. Do you want it like super tight at the chest, the boo-boos area, or do you want it more like loose and flowy? If you want to be more refined sexiness, where it's like you're showcasing, teasing the sexiness, I would recommend you do a little bit looser. We can go for something more along the lines of something like this. Where maybe it's a tighter fit around the waist, but less so around the chest. Like maybe she's wearing, I don't know, a tank top that flows just along there. And because I'm sketching this shape out, my lines are gonna be garbage, okay? So work with me here. So that's one option. Then you could have her just wear a nice little undie that follows along the shape of that belly. And you just add your little laces or whatever. Other option, if you wanted to go full sexy, as it seems like you were going for some lingerie kind of shit. We'll go for a slightly tighter fit. So right here, we'll make it so that fabric sticks right close to underneath that boob. And then you can have all the fabric that you want. How did you design this shit? Okay, somehow that magically happens. Somehow fabric flows down that magically. They draw a ribbon additional seam under the booba. Oh. Oh. Okay, so they're doing some shit like underneath here where it's like cinched at the boobs. Like right there. Something like that. And then they just somehow magically, I don't know, make this cinch and not fall down that way. Okay, I guess. I guess I'll suspend my belief just a little bit. Maybe it's not a very flowy fabric. Maybe it's more of like a tight spandex kind of fabric. Maybe that's the situation. Don't know. That's like if we're trying to be sexy but also keep some stuff to ourselves, you know? Because I honestly think that's like the most fun ways to kind of hide some of the stuff. You could do it more longer if you want that way, or you can make it short like how I did. Right. I don't know, she said she said ribbons. We're going for sexy to show off a little bit more of that line between the thigh and the groin. Some shit like that. I guess if you're doing this version, same idea for the lingerie. Make sure we're still following this curve along the belly line and not whatever you think the belly is. So that way we're actually creating 3D shape, 3D space. Goof. If you're not sure how that works, turn it, and that way you'll see the belly and how it should turn a little bit better. I don't know, however you want to design the lingerie, okay? It's up to you. We can do more frills. And you can do like laces. Lace design here. Okay, it's ugly lace, but this is to give you the idea. Give you that little bow, haha. I would honestly think if you're gonna go full on sexy, you would just draw a whole ass bra instead of that, but if we're being really sexy, you would wanna put little nip, sneak in there. So a lot pointier. But we're gonna keep this stream a little bit PG, so I'm not gonna go full nip. And again, for big ruffles like this, start with the bottom side first. And you want to take advantage of that cool ruffle silhouette and include it on the side right here. So don't just close it off here, bring it all the way up there, Misu. And then just attach lines to wherever those curves are. So something like that. So 2 different options for you, and then let me see for your colors. If you'd like, let's do this color. For a softer look, you can go for this kind of purplish color. Where's the outfit? Ah. This will give you a softer look. Properly see-through. So if you have Photoshop or Procreate, easiest method. Trust. So just do the skin first. So you'll fill in the whole skin. I'm also going to separate your layers. So I would highly suggest you separate back hair versus front hair to make your life easier when it comes to coloring everything. So I'm going to help you do that right now. Cut back hair. I'm going to move this all the way back behind the skin, that way it'll be easier for you to color everything else. Not gonna lie, a lot of my pieces sometimes end up like 200 layers too, so don't feel bad. Just make sure you have good layer management, which we are all guilty of. I kind of wonder if there's like an AI that can help you do that, but then I wonder like how would it know to label your layers appropriately? Okay, just filling in some of those gaps that I see. So color the whole thing, and don't even worry about the dress at this point. You're going to separate the dress layer from the skin. And we'll just use a little bit of a pinkish color just to add some color to her. Oh my god, that's too much. Pitch. Why can I not do lighter? Okay, especially around these joint areas and the boob areas, we'll do a little bit more of that pinkish color. That's a very common thing you'll see. So just spread them out here and there. Make sure you use a nice soft big brush. Oops. And the reason why you want to add color there is because when you add the dress underneath, you'll be able to see that some of those colors pop up and it's going to look really nice. So what is this? The band? The dress. Wait, dress. We're going to lower the opacity of it first. And then if you want, we can play around with your layer modes. And so the reason why you can't really see this is because your dress is too similar of a color to the skin. So we're going to make the skin just a little bit darker. I know, controversial. Very controversial. Considering how most anime coloring, they make the skin super, super light. You just have to make it a little bit darker so you're able to see, you know, those whites in that dress. Or you make your dress darker. So let me get rid of. I think I just have to choose a color for you. So with linear burn, do you see how the pinks are kind of showing up underneath the dress? So that's one way you could do some of those see-through looks, and then afterwards you'll go on to another layer if you want. You can merge these two. Groovy stream, yes, we're doing spicy stream today. Super spicy dicey. In order to get every of those shadows in there, you're gonna make sure you're either merge your layers, but if you feel like that's committing too much, you can just create another layer. To fix up some of the colors. So obviously some of these areas you might not see as much of the skin underneath it. Let me move this layer all the way up here. Dress line option 2. Dress line, this one is skin line, hairline. And the reason why I moved this layer up here is just so I can cover up some of this line art right here. So we'll take that color that's there and we're just going to hide away some of those features. Especially if there's going to be, you know, wrinkles here and there. Some of these features are not going to be showing as much based on how wrinkles kind of double up on that fabric and they hide away some of those translucency of the fabric. Now I don't know how the hell this thing is supposed to work. Hello Jesse, thank God I'm streaming a little longer this time to make up for last month. I know, sick anime waifu, right? Papa bless that. Then for here, the straps on the edges, they typically wouldn't be see-through. I'm gonna be honest, most of the time straps are pretty opaque. So we'll fix up that color with our new layer. And so that's why it's gonna be important for you to really understand which layer is which, so the layer management has to be on point. And we're gonna make sure that we see a little bit less of that boob color just underneath it to create that sense of translucency. So I don't want to see all of that boob color. I want to see just some of it. What a perv. Anything that's like this right here, if it folds up like this, you're less likely to see what's underneath it, due to how the fabrics are overlapping in visually. Of course, you might see some a little bit like along the edge, but not too much. Now, where is that dress? Full on perverts in my chat today. God damn. Gotta start banning people here. It just really depends on where the wrinkles are happening, okay? And I'm gonna make this part a little bit, I don't know, less floaty out. I'm guessing the clothing is like a tight thing. I'm not sure. Doesn't make much sense if you ask me. Here, so we'll do the bottom, just a little bit less of that color. And then you're gonna create some more layers. We're gonna do maybe a layer for the lingerie underneath here. So it's gonna showcase it even more. Oh, maybe I'll do lighter. My bad, that was a little dark. And I don't know, maybe she decides to make it balance this part of that dress or the lingerie or whatever the shit it is going to be a little bit darker. Just to make it match. I don't know, because visually there's just too much light going on, so she may opt to do some weird kind of shenagle like that. Okay, so let me add that thing right here, and we're just gonna make it a little bit less overwhelming. Maybe she's wearing... We're all pervs in this chat today. I don't know, bro. Maybe she's wearing like a strapless bra. Because it's just a lot. Okay, I will make this less dark, or I'll put this under the dress fix-up to make it part of the dress. No, I don't think it's working. Oops. I gotta do it this way. So it looks like it's part of it. Okay, some shit like that maybe. For here, we're gonna erase a little bit away so we can see some of that in there. And then color-wise, you can always just do a multiply layer to do the shadows. So maybe for our case, we might do that bluish shadow. Just to make everything match. I'll do blue-purple, so we're not committing so hard into the blue. And that way it'll kind of save you some time and also makes it look very anime. One thing you'll note is that whenever they do these types of big anime titties, the shading around the boobs are always really soft and delicate, so I expect nothing less than that. And we're gonna warm it up just a little bit afterwards. Oh my god, there it is. Where is... We'll put it on top here. Yes, you gotta do the oily skin and everything also to make it cherry on top. Same for the belly right here. I need that soft shading. Haha. We'll just put down those general shadows first, and then once we're done with that, we'll change some of the colors, because some of these are a little too cool and we want to have some more warmth in here. Where's my brush? There it is. Nice. Some shit like that, I guess. And then we're gonna make sure this area also gets shadow. Okay, you're not just going to give me body with shadow, but not underneath with shadow. Same for the hair. Okay, or I'm gonna actually riot against you, Misu. Okay, and let's warm some stuff up. So I'm gonna switch over to, say... I'll play it by ear. I'll see what layer looks good in a second. Maybe I want to make this more reddish. Okay, I'll make it more reddish. So some of these shadows here, we're gonna make a little bit more reddish, orangey color, because there's that whole subsurface scattering happening, so if you don't have that, it feels very off. And you'll finish off with those shiny highlights. So, shiny highlights. We'll go for super bright. And it's very hard for us to see the super bright areas just because the skin is so light. So I'm gonna have to darken up the skin just a tad bit. Just an incy bit. So you could do full on darker like this so you can really see it. Or we can go for just maybe like a little bit lighter. Depends on you. So again, I want to use basically almost a white, and you're just gonna choose some top spots, some highlight areas. So typically at the very peak of that round shape, we'll get some highlights. Oh, where's the freaking hair? There. And I would suggest we use more of that blue highlight just to bring back some of that blue color into the hair. No, that's too blue and not light enough. Alright, that juicy enough for you, Misu? So, a lot of the coloring obviously is super messy, but you would go ahead and just, you know, clean it up. Like, clean up. You can even add more, like, pinkness to the skin. Areas like the lip. You could do a little bit on the nose if you want, or just darken up the cheek. Yeah, a lot to take in, but hey, that's what next month is for. I'm not liking this part of the dress, so I'll just get rid of it. Okay, so something like this, it would be perfectly fine. If you don't add more shadows, you won't make it too crazy complicated. For the background, you can just keep it like a blurry background. So you can just do nice blurry background, Gaussian blur, just... We're gonna do this part blurry, the other stuff is not blurry, obviously. This part can just be blurry. Some good shit, and then some quick... If you really want to make it like super color crazy, where's your skin? Do it here. If you really want to make it color crazy, you're gonna hate me, but this is a color option. Lighting is a key portion of any good illustration, so just bear with me, give me a second, let me cook. Okay. So I'll just erase away for the sides. Okay, let me cook. Too blue? Okay, so if you don't like how blue this is, we can make it warmer. We can go for more of a warmer color here. Or you could go for more of that purplish color. Okay, so that's an option right there. And then let me just finish erasing what I was gonna erase. So let me cook a little bit more here. I don't even know what color this is. Okay, it's purple. It's purple. Okay, everyone, it's purple. Okay, if this much of the face is showing, obviously this part of the hair definitely gonna have more light. Same for here, same for the chest, definitely has more light. And we can do... Oh my god, frick me, okay. Okay, bear with me, bear with me. Keep that shit under there dark, because this is going to cast a shadow. Then you can do a little bit more shadow over here. Okay, shadow, 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 shadow. This is shadow. This is shadow. This is shadow. We have shadow over here. Maybe parts of that dress is going to catch some of that light that comes through there. Maybe part of this dress catches some of that light, catches some of that light. Okay, and then you could just finish off. It's definitely not safe, bro. You can post on Discord, we won't judge you because we're all secretly perverts, I guess. And then we'll make this just a little bit more reddish, just so that everything matches a little bit better. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll make this slightly less. Maybe we'll keep it that neutral color, and then you can finish off with just a little bit of this spicy magic. I'm thinking this is not the right mode, so we're gonna play around with modes till we get what we want. Maybe this one. Okay, part of the reason is it's just everything's too bright. We'll keep it that neutralish color, so you could do something like that. Oh my god. I'm on the wrong layer. Okay. So maybe something like this would be cool. Let me see if this glow layer is on top. And then I would just do one more glow layer because I'm excessive like that. And let's do those subsurface scatterings properly because I'm pretty sure all that subsurface scattering that I did was not accurate anymore. Okay, so you could totally do something like that to really make her glow in the dark. If you're not feeling like you want to do so much shading, this is one option where you could just cut away for shadow. Okay, so before, after, well, quote unquote before. Okay, so that should be it for today's stream. I will finish up editing that video tonight, so let me see. Preview of what I was working on. Where did I put it? So I have two different versions here. I have one that is the manga panel version, and then I have one that's the illustration version. I don't know if I'll finish the coloring in time to release the video, but I will definitely do the finished coloring and post it to share with you guys, since the main purpose is just to give ideas of how to panel, arrange your cartoons, comics to be more impactful. Okay, so I will save these for you, and then I will upload into the Discord in a little bit. Okay, have a great night, everyone. What a ending. What a way to end this stream on boobs. Okay, bye bye everyone.